Paramedics often face life and death situations under extreme pressure, and the training they get prepares them for the job.
Your sandwich has been sitting half-eaten on the dashboard for 4 hours. You've picked it up twice. Both times, the radio cut you off before the first bite cleared your mouth. That's not bad luck. That's the job.
Crew 4452, Mark and Verity, have just cleared from hospital.
Paramedics work 24 hours straight on the promise that somewhere in there they'll get to eat, sleep and use a bathroom like a normal human being. But the truth is simpler and a lot harder to hear. By hour 20, the person making your life or death decisions is running on a brain that scientists say behaves exactly like someone legally drunk.
4449, 92-year-old male, fatigued, unable to pass urine and unable to eat.
Call it what the crews call it, the 24. Some services still run it because rural coverage doesn't support anything shorter, and because a lot of medics genuinely prefer 3 long days a week to 5 short ones. What almost nobody outside the ambulance ever sees is what that preference actually costs the body over the course of a single shift. Start with the meal that never quite happens. EMS workers have a nickname for their own diet, and it isn't flattering. EMS, they joke, stands for Eat More Snacks, because a real sit-down meal with a beginning, middle and end is closer to a rumour than a routine. One paramedic described trying to enjoy a single, uninterrupted meal over the course of an entire 24-hour shift, only to have it stretched across several hours by call after call. A crew in the UK became a small local headline for exactly this. A duty operations manager named Tim Hargraves stopped to pick up food during a 10-hour shift and got heckled by a bystander who told him it must be nice to have time to eat.
Station 41, we got a walk-in medical in the bay. Station 41.
Walk-in medical in the bay.
5 minutes later, Hargraves had thrown the food away and was running lights and sirens to a cardiac arrest. He posted about it afterward, and the story spread precisely because every medic who read it recognized their own week in it. The fix most crews land on isn't a real meal, it's damage control. Protein bars kept in a side pocket, a wrap eaten one-handed at a stoplight, coffee and then more coffee because caffeine is the one dependable tool in a job with no dependable clock. Ask any paramedic what they actually ate on a hard shift and you'll usually get the same kind of answer. 2 cups of coffee, half an apple turnover, a few bites of cold pasta standing over the sink at the station at 3 in the morning, because that's when the calls finally slowed down enough to remember food existed. And that's only the easiest constraint on this list. Somewhere around hour 8, your body starts sending a different signal. And this one, you can't fix with a granola bar. You have to go to the bathroom. And there is no scheduled window for that either. Paramedics have their own dark joke about it, the kind you only laugh at if you've lived it. One medic put it about as plainly as it gets. Wondering if a glove can hold the contents of your bladder. Worse, knowing that it can. Even worse, knowing that it can't. Another admitted that the second a call gets dispatched over the radio, his body has been trained to head straight for the nearest bathroom first, on reflex, because that dispatch tone means the window is closing, whether his bladder agrees or not. It sounds like the kind of detail that belongs in a joke, and for years paramedics have turned it into exactly that. It's also, if you look closer, a genuine occupational hazard that fire departments have had to write policy around, because crews sitting in a parked ambulance for hours at a stretch have to physically leave their coverage zone just to use a restroom, and going out of service to do it can shave critical minutes off someone else's response time in a different part of the city. One department was pushed into requiring crews to document and report every bathroom break they took while on duty. And the union representing those paramedics fired back that the policy amounted to treating a basic bodily function as a performance metric. Here's where the shift stops being merely uncomfortable and starts becoming something closer to dangerous.
Price Road, cross of Graham Circle, station.
All of that missed food, all of that held bladder, is happening on top of a much bigger problem that never gets its own headline: sleep. Or the almost complete lack of it. A 24-hour shift was originally built around the idea that a crew would get real, if occasional, rest between calls. In practice, in a busy district, that almost never survives contact with the call volume. Some medics report going on close to 30 calls inside a single 24-hour rotation, which leaves closer to zero real sleep than the scheduled downtime the shift is technically supposed to include. You doze, sitting upright in the cab between transports. You lie down in full uniform, boots still laced, because taking them off feels like tempting the tones to drop the second your head hits the pillow. One medic's partner used to make her sleep with her boots on for exactly that reason.
And I'll shut it all back off and put it back in my compartment. So after I check off the truck.
Superstition dressed up as efficiency, and also, if you ask her, basically true. By hour 16, the fatigue stops being a feeling and starts being a measurable deficit. Researchers who study shift work have found that going without real sleep for roughly 24 hours produces cognitive impairment comparable to a blood alcohol level around the legal driving limit in most states. Reaction time slows, working memory gets patchy.
Oh, Lord. Scoop him up and get out of his weather.
The kind of quick, layered judgment call a paramedic makes on every single call, reading a patient's colour, weighing a dosage, deciding whether a symptom is routine or the first sign of something worse, starts running through a brain that is, by every measurable standard, impaired. Nobody would let that same medic get behind the wheel of their own car after a few drinks. And yet, by the back half of a 24-hour shift, that same level of impairment is simply Tuesday. You feel it in small, specific ways, long before anyone would call it dangerous. A patient's blood pressure cuff reading takes you 2 tries instead of 1. A drug name you've said 1,000 times catches on your tongue for half a second before it comes out right.
Listen, have you had any alcohol today? Any drugs or anything like that?
No, I don't take heroin.
You catch yourself rereading the same line on a monitor because the first read didn't quite land. None of it looks like impairment from the outside. It looks like a slightly slower Tuesday. From the inside, at hour 18 or 20, it's the exact deficit the research describes, just wearing a uniform instead of a warning label.
Is everybody here? Michelle's going to give you a report.
The agencies that study this seriously have started treating it less like a scheduling inconvenience and more like an actual safety threat, on the same shelf as fatigue rules for truck drivers and airline pilots. National safety reviews of EMS fatigue have recommended capping shifts under 24 hours, guaranteeing access to caffeine as an actual countermeasure rather than a personal vice, and building in real opportunities to nap on duty, instead of pretending the downtime between calls counts as rest. Some services that have switched away from the 24-hour model report better alertness and fewer errors within weeks. The catch is obvious. Shorter shifts mean more shifts, more staff and more money, in an industry that is already chronically short on all three. So the 24-hour shift survives, not because anyone thinks it's the safest way to run an ambulance, but because it's the cheapest way to keep one running at all. And the person absorbing that trade-off isn't a budget line, it's the medic in the driver's seat at hour 20. Half a sandwich, still sitting on the dash, running the same brain science says would fail a roadside sobriety test, about to walk into someone's worst day and make a decision that has to be right the first time. That's the reveal sitting underneath the jokes about tube food and the memes about bladder control. It was never really about the missed lunches or the held-in bathroom breaks, uncomfortable as both genuinely are. It's about what those small daily indignities are quietly standing in for. A body running on empty long enough that the science stops calling it tired and starts calling it impaired. Doing a job where the cost of impairment isn't a fender bender. It's someone else's chest, someone else's airway, someone else's 90 seconds that matter more than any 90 seconds have mattered all day. And still they keep signing up for the 24, year after year, because the alternative rotations have their own costs. And because for a lot of medics, 3 long, brutal days genuinely beat 5 shorter ones spread across the whole week. Ask why they stay in a job that runs them this close to empty, and the answer is rarely the paycheck. It's the 90 seconds. The one where you got the airway open in time, or found the vein on the first try, or talked someone down off the worst moment of their life using nothing but your voice, and the calm you weren't sure you still had left in you. They know exactly what a 24-hour shift costs their body before they ever clock in. They show up anyway, sandwich in hand, knowing full well it probably won't survive the hour. So maybe the real question isn't how a paramedic survives 24 hours without a proper meal. It's whether the rest of us are comfortable trusting our worst days to someone the research says is, by the end of that shift, running on a brain no different from someone who never should have been handed the keys.